Hey guys, I'm Miss Anna, the Youth Services Assistant Librarian for Decatur Public Library, and welcome to All About, where we'll talk about different people, places, and things in history. But today, we're talking about the godmother of Thanksgiving, Sarah Josepha Hale, and I have a picture of her right here for you to look at. We'll also be talking about how Thanksgiving became a national holiday, and this was inspired by Thank You, Sarah, The Woman Who Saved Thanksgiving by Laurie House Anderson. After we talk about Sarah, we'll bring in our collections development manager, Miss Tina, and she's going to help demonstrate a few Thanksgiving inspired minute to win it games for you to play with your family over the holidays. So let's get started. But first, did you know that Thanksgiving hasn't always been celebrated on the fourth Thursday of November? Since the famous 1621 Thanksgiving celebrated between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag Indians to the 1940s, it didn't have one permanent date to call its own. In fact, Thanksgiving has a slightly disorganized and confusing history, which you can read about in detail in Thanksgiving, the Holiday at the Heart of the American Experience by Melanie Kirkpatrick. And although this book comes from the adult section, not the youth services, it has a lot of facts that might interest middle and high school ages. What I found most interesting was reading about how irregularly Thanksgiving was celebrated by the colonies and the states at America's founding. For my entire life, Thanksgiving has always been celebrated on the fourth Thursday of November, but it turns out that hasn't always been the case. Originally, a colony might choose to celebrate Thanksgiving on any certain day of the year based on specific events. So, for instance, one example in this book. One February in 1631, a lost English ship bringing the colonists much needed supplies arrived in Boston Harbor. The colonists were so thankful that the lost ship was found that they planned a day to give thanks. So they had a Thanksgiving in February. From 1621 to the mid-1800s, Thanksgiving did not have one set day to celebrate. It didn't even have a set month. Most of the time, it was left up to those in power, like the governors, to decide when their state would celebrate it. It was usually sometime after the harvest, between September to December. And this means that not all states celebrated Thanksgiving in the same months, which is really weird to think about. But not only that, some states didn't even have a Thanksgiving Day. Some southern states saw it as a Yankee holiday and refused to celebrate it at all. Then, to make matters worse, it wasn't always even referred to as Thanksgiving. It was also known as American Festival Day. It was sometimes called Union Day, and it was sometimes called Thanksgiving Union Day. So you see what I mean when I say that Thanksgiving has a disorganized and confusing history, right? So what does this have to do with Sarah Josepha Hale? Remember what we called her at the start of the video? The godmother of Thanksgiving? Sarah Hale was instrumental in making Thanksgiving a national holiday, and if it wasn't for Sarah Hale, we might have lost Thanksgiving. So who is this woman who saved Thanksgiving? Well, Sarah Josepha Hale, and I have my little paper doll of her right here. She was born in 1788 in New Hampshire. She's most well known as being the godmother of Thanksgiving and for also writing the children's poem, Mary Had a Little Lamb. But she did so much more during her lifetime. She was a local school teacher, and she was also a huge advocate for a number of different causes. And this includes speaking out for women to teach in public schools, the creation of daycare centers for small kids, public playgrounds, property rights for women. She founded a society dedicated to increasing wages for working women, and she helped found Vassar College, the first college for women. But she was also one of our country's first female novelists. She wrote fiction books. She wrote poetry books. She wrote books on keeping your house and cooking, and even one on the history of women. That doesn't even include the work she did editing books for other people. And one of her books that she wrote, not edited, one of her books, it was called Northwood, A Tale of New England, was even published overseas in London in 1827, which was a huge and a rare honor for any American writer, let alone an American woman novelist. So this success of writing and editing led her to being offered a job editing a new magazine for women called Ladies Magazine, which later became Godey's Ladies Book, which right here, this is a hardbound collection of the magazine from 1877. You can see 1877 written here right on the spine. This was found in our Alabama room, and this has editions January to December inside, as well as everything that you would find in the magazine, which is really cool to look at. So what this is a women's magazine that focused on American culture. At this point in history, America was still a relatively new country. But under Sarah's editorship, this magazine focused on food, fashion, parenting, and running a household. And it became really popular. Within 1 year, subscription had doubled. And within 20 years, it had increased 1,400%. 1/3 of those reading it were in the South, but it reached all parts of the country. So this magazine became a great platform for her to promote Thanksgiving. She would write stories centered around the holiday, like a story about a long-lost soldier presumed dead by his family, returning home before a Thanksgiving feast, and his mother being so thankful for his miraculous return. Or she would feature recipes that were specifically marketed as traditional Thanksgiving dishes, like roast turkey and pumpkin pie. She even encouraged readers to send in their own recipes to be published, and was one of the first magazines of their time to do so. But she also kept track of which states celebrated Thanksgiving, what day they did it on, and would publish that in the magazine for others to read. So, like, for instance, in 1858, only 21 states had celebrations on November 25th, while 4 other states chose to celebrate different dates. That was something she published. In 1859, 30 states and 3 territories celebrated Thanksgiving on the same day. And in 1861, that number fell to 24 states. We know this because she published it. What made this project so special to Sarah was that she saw Thanksgiving as a homegrown holiday. Up until this point in time, there were only 2 holidays that were completely American. One was the Day of National Patriotism, which was George Washington's birthday, and the Day of National Independence, which was the 4th of July. Promoting Thanksgiving to her readers isn't all she did, though. She wrote tons of letters to government officials asking them to make it a national holiday. She wrote presidents. She wrote Zachary Taylor. She wrote President Franklin Pierce. She wrote President James Buchanan. And she wrote President Abraham Lincoln. And in 1863, after 38 years of petitioning to get Thanksgiving to be a national holiday, President Lincoln made it a national holiday. But just to reiterate, Thank You, Sarah doesn't cover all this information. There's so much more to the journey of how Thanksgiving became a national holiday that I didn't cover. But all the information that I've shared with you today came from this book. However, Laurie Halse Anderson's book does give a very good simplified overview of Sarah Hale and gave a new story to Thanksgiving that I'd never heard of before. Both of these books are amazing, so I would encourage you to pick them up. But hopefully you've learned something new from this video. So if you're ready, let's go meet Miss Tina for some holiday-inspired minute-to-win-it games to play with your family. Miss Tina and Miss Susan, our operations manager, will help demonstrate our minute-to-win-it games. First up, we have Brock's Pumpkin Patch with Sticks. Using the chopsticks, see who can get the most pumpkins out of the pumpkin patch onto their own plate. Here we're using candy corn. In the next game, we have paper football, where each player gets a certain number of footballs, and they can attempt to thump the footballs, either the furthest or into designated point-given buckets.
I got the camera.
The third minute to win a game we have is corn dig. In a large bowl filled with corn, the players must search for a certain number of pieces that have been colored with Sharpie and are different. In this example, they are searching for 10 beans that have been colored red. Although this is called corn dig, you can use whatever you have at home that's a bean or that can easily be distinguished differently. In this example, we're using beans. Next, we have snow shovel. Using a spoon and your mouth, no hands, transfer marshmallows from one bowl into another. The player with the most snow in their bowl at the end of the minute is the winner of this game. For this, you can use small marshmallows, Cheerios, we're using our beans from corn dig, or any sort of small thing that can easily fit in a spoon. The next minute to win a game we have is called pennies in Coke cans. Guess how many pennies are in the Coke cans by jingling them and lining them up in order of 1 to 6. How is this related to Thanksgiving, you ask? Abraham Lincoln was the president to declare Thanksgiving as a national holiday, and it's his face that's on our penny. The last game we have is called Macy's Day Balloon Parade. Each kid is given 3 balloons. They have to keep all 3 balloons in the air for an entire minute. At the end of the minute, however many balloons they have in the air is how many points they get. I hope you enjoyed those minute to win it games, but one thing that I wanted to share with you that I completely forgot. Remember Mary Had a Little Lamb? We said that it was written by Sarah Hale. I wanted to share with you the explanation behind that. In this book, thank you, Sarah, it says, one day a lamb followed one of Sarah's students to school. The lamb waited outside the schoolhouse for its owner all day, and Sarah wrote a poem about the incident called Mary Had a Little Lamb, which became one of the most famous nursery rhymes in America. And that's all I wanted to share with you. Have a good night.